Morning.
We're on Chav Gimel Amud Beis. So I think I was muted, so I didn't hear. Probably people said something I didn't hear, so now I'm not muted. Okay.
Just said good morning.
Thank you. Okay, Chav Gimel, appreciate, much appreciated. Chav Gimel Amud Beis. So we're still on a tangent. Interesting, because this is not a pesha. This is not a pesha asa. It's interesting how the subject goes over here. We were talking about the Nishbesi Torani. If a woman said she was captured, we didn't know it, and she tells us she was captured and she was not touched. So it's just a pesha asa. Because of that, we came to the next Mishnah, which is the top of this Amud Chav Gimel Amud Beis, and this is nothing about pesha asa. This was that a woman is believed to testify about another woman that she was untouched, and not the Eid Echad, and even Eid Echad, even a woman, and that came in as a side subject. That was not the subject. We're talking about pesha asa, and because of that, we can bring in another Mishnah over here that's also nothing to do with pesha asa. It has to do with the subject that Eid Echad is Neman, and as before, there was also we didn't touch upon it, but the fact that they say that the other one is told, each one says about the other one that she was not touched. So you might think that they made a conspiracy amongst themselves. I'll say for you, you say for me. And you see that they're not choshesh for that. The Mishnah said before that if each one testifies for the other one, they're neman. So the next Mishnah, our Mishnah comes in now just as a tangent onto that. The subject about being neman, eid echad, and even if they're doing each other a favor, seemingly it might be choshesh that they have something, a conspiracy. They're not choshesh for that. So here goes the cruise on this subject about Namanas of Eid Echad for a certain subject, and even if there's what the Gemara calls gomlin. Gomlin means that you do a favor for each other. What do they call that in the politics? Rolling.
One hand washes the back, right?
There's some in the politics that you do. You pass my law and I'll pass your law.
Right.
There's okay.
You shy also with the young one. Picking up each other. I remember if it's a plastic or it's a
So here's the case.
You roll but my back, I go your back.
So here's the case about Namanas who's a Kohen. Nowadays we don't have this too much because someone comes in, he wants to get an aliyah, so it's not such an issue. He just says he's a Kohen, you give him aliyah. But in those days it was negate to truma, and what kind of a verification does he have to be that as a Kohen? A person comes in and says he's a Kohen, he doesn't have the manas. It means in those days to say that he should be able to eat truma has other kind of ramifications, not just getting an aliyah. So he wouldn't be believed. He has to bring the verification that he's a Kohen. But now it says that Eid Echad is good enough. And even if the Eid Echad, each one is saying on the other one that is a Kohen, it's good enough. If they're testifying for each other, each one says he's a Kohen. Reuven says Shimon's a Kohen. Shimon says Reuven's a Kohen, even though it also looks a little bit fishy that maybe they're doing each other a favor. They came together as a conspiracy, not choshesh. Same as before, by the two women who say each one says on the other one that they were untouched, so they were not defiled, so they're neman, and you're not choshesh what's called gomlin. So too, what a kohen. First of all, you see Allah that Eid Echad is neman, that you need a eidus, Eid Echad is neman, and even if there's a chashash that maybe they're doing each other a favor, you're not choshesh for that. But Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda argues, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein malim lakun al pi Eid Echad. Eid Echad is not enough to make somebody a kohen to eat truma. Eid Echad is not enough. He seems to argue and say that I agree sometimes that Eid Echad is not enough, but sometimes Eid Echad is good enough. That if somebody keeps complaining, there's some kind of a rumor about him that he's not a Kohen, then you have to have two Eidim. But if nobody's saying anything, it's quiet, and he brings Eid Echad, that's good enough. Maybe they might have said that Eid Echad at all. You always have to have two Eidim. But Belazar says only if there's some rumor, there's some trouble over there, so then you have to have two Eidim to prove that he's a Kohen. Otherwise, Eid Echad would be good enough. He seems to say the same as the Tanakhama, that Eid Echad is good enough. Maybe the Gemara is going to talk about that. What does he argue? So just to sum it up, this Mishnah, as we said, is on a cruise. We're going on a cruise about Dinei Kahuna, how to verify that someone's a Kohen. First of all, it says that you're not believed on your own to say you're a Kohen. We just mentioned that maybe that doesn't have to do with nowadays, because nowadays we're not doing anything. We're just giving him an aliyah. So maybe it doesn't have to have any kind of a verification. But in those days, teach we have to have some kind of a verification. Everybody holds he's not believed on his own to say I am a Kohen. But as far as an Eid Echad, that's the subject. Tanakhama says Eid Echad is good enough. And even if they're saying about each other, there's a chashash that maybe they're something about rolling. Is such a kind of log rolling? There's some kind of expression about we're doing one for the other. Lobbying? I'm not sure. I forget.
It's for tech.
Okay, But anyway, that even like each one's doing, what is that?
Tit for tat.
What tit for tat, he said.
Tit for tat, okay.
What page is this?
23b, Chav Gimel Lamed Beis on the bottom. So welcome back.
Thank you.
So as far as what kind of testimony verification do you need for a Kohen? So Tanakama says Eid Echad is good, and even though they're doing a favor, they're doing testimony for each other, we're not concerned with that. Everybody says Eid Echad is not good enough. The Belazar says it depends if there's some kind of a problem that we have to deal with. If it's quiet, then Eid Echad is good enough. If it's not, then you have to wait them. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel at the end seems to hold like Tanakama that Eid Echad is always good enough. So seems to be a few opinions about how much testimony you need about verification of a Kohen. Before the Gemara goes into the subject of our Mishnah, it just zooms out and goes on all the Mishnahs we spoke about till now. There were all kinds of Pesha Asars. And the Gemara there were 4 cases of Pesha Asar, and this Mishnah is not Pesha Asar. This Mishnah of the Chor is not a Pesha Asar. We had a couple of tangents we went on. The whole thing of Pesha Asar is a tangent from the period before. But the Mishnah brought 4 cases of Pesha Asar, and just to highlight them, that's the first one over here. 2 on this page, and then 2 coming up on the next page, all the greens over here. There are going to be 4 cases. The Mishnah, the first case was Modeh Yeshua, which is that's the beginning of the statement over there. It spoke about if somebody says this is your father's field, this was your father's field, but I bought it from him. That was a Pesha Asa. We didn't know that it's a father's field. So now that he says Pesha Asa, Pesha Yeteh. It was your father's field, but I bought it from him. Second case was Eidim, when they say this is our signature, but we were Anusim, Katanim, Sulei Eidos. So they're the ones who confirm the signature. At the same time, in the same breath, they say, but the testimony is not good. And the third case we had was about an Ish, a woman who says that I was married, but I was divorced. We didn't know that she was married. So Pesha Asa, Pesha Hitir. The fourth case was this Besi Utorani. Both of these were yesterday that I was captured, but I was not defiled. So too, that we didn't know that she was captured in the first place.
She says Pesha is because she limits herself. Is that what it means? I always...
Pen. It's
Pe,
pen.
She'asar, Pe, She'itir. The mouth that prohibited, the mouth permitted. That we only know the prohibition in the first place because of their mouth. What we call our pivan al-chaim, we're living off their mouth. So if they qualify how much they're coming to prohibit, so they're believed because the whole source of the prohibition is only from their mouth anyway. So we have 4 cases of this concept called Pesha Asa, Pesha Hitir, and the Gemara is going to ask how come you have to have 4 examples of the same yisod, the same principle. We should have had 1 case, and the rest of them are just applications. That's what the Gemara wants to now know since we finished the whole subject. So we zoom out and say, how come we have to have 4 cases of the same yisod? How come we need 4 examples? There were some side issues also that came up. The Gemara is going to talk about them also as we continue. But there are 4 cases of Pesha Asa. Why do we need all these cases? The Gemara says, Tzrichi, they're necessary. The first case where it says Modeh Yeshua, which is the beginning of the statement. Modeh Yeshua in a case where this was your father's field and I bought it from him.
Wait, I'm sorry, you with the Mishnah?
We just finished the Mishnah, we're into the Gemara now.
Okay.
Ditana Modeh Yeshua, one line up. Ditana Modeh Yeshua, Mishum Dika Dror Demamona. Aval Edim, the Leka Dror Demamona, maybe the first case where we say Pesha Asa is because it's a monetary issue. That's why Pesha Asa is believed. But maybe by the Eidim, that's not a monetary issue. Over there, we're talking about if their signature is confirmed. Of course, it has relevance, if it's a good signature. So then whatever it's kind to signed on. But right now, the issue is the kashrus of the Eidim. So you might think that the Pesha Asa is only functional when you're talking about money. The word drora, I looked it up. So they say that it might mean a chisaron, either a loss of money or a shaykhus to money. It has something to do with money, monetary laws. So over there, you might think that Pesha Asa only works when it has to do with money. But the question about the kashrus of the Eidim, the signature, the confirmation of the signature, you might think that Pesha Asa is not enough to make to qualify if it's a good signature, if it's a good document or not. So that's why you have to have the Mishnah also about the Eidim, that Pesha Asa also works about the confirmation of the Eidim signature. Mitana Eidim mishum del alma, aval ihu lenafshei ema lo. The reason why you have to the second case is not enough. Just say the second case, don't say the first case. Just say the case of the Eidim, don't need the first case about buying that the field was mine, because by the Eidim, it's not relevant to themselves. It means the Eidim, they're going to confirm their signature and they're saying that it's not a good document, but it doesn't have anything to do personally with them. They're saying that a document doesn't have to do with them. They're the Eidim, but they're talking about whatever it says in the contract. So maybe over there, the Pesha Asa works because it isn't relevant to them. But to say over here, the first case of the money, where he's saying that it's my field, it was your father's field, but I bought it from him, so the Pesha Asa is giving him the money. Maybe Pesha Asa doesn't go so far. when it's negated to the person himself. So you have to have both of those Mishnayos. The Mishnah, the one on top of Chav Daled, V'yashmin and Hanitati Mishum the Mamona, Avalesha Sish the Isura Emulo. These two cases, they have eventually to do with money. It means that even though the case of Adam is the case of the confirmation of the signature, but it goes on to have something to do with money. But the case of the Isha Sish has to do with is she mutter to get married. Over there she says, Aisha says she was Gushani, and we want to believe her that she was divorced because she didn't have to tell us that she was married in the first place. So you might think that the Pesha doesn't go on to Yisurim. It only has to do with things between people, like the case of the field or the case of the contract that was signed by Adam and so on. But when it has to do with Yisurim, of a woman that's married is not allowed to remarry only if you have proof that she was divorced. Maybe it's not enough proof. And the last case, the question is basically how come we need the last case? It means we have already a case about the field, the case about the Eidim, the case about the Eshes Ish. So the last case of Pesha, so that was that she reveals to us that she was captured, but she also tells us that she was not defiled. So why is that more of a chiddush than in any other case we said till now? The answer is Mishum the Kavoy the Misni and Mishnah says Bo Eidim Arezu Lo states that you're right, that the believe the Pesha, that is not a chiddush. We know that already. But there is a chiddush because in the last case it says something unique about the last case. That is that if after she got married, Adam came and told us that she was captured, it means that she lost the whole koch of Pesha because she was the only source of information that we knew in the first place that she was captured. But if Adam come, then there's no Pesha. Here at the time when we permitted her to get married, she was the only source of our information. But the Maisa subsequently Adam came, maybe the Pesha is going to be revoked retroactively. Now we don't need her. Over there it says basically say once she's married, she should not be married. The Gemara said before, even if she didn't marry, once you got the permission to get married, it's also good enough. So and that the Gemara is saying at this point is only only true in the last case. Because the last case only are we going to say that Pesha Asa doesn't get retracted retroactively. But the other cases we're going to be machmir. That's why I had to say this last case, not for the din of Pesha Asa, but for the din that the evidence works, even if the Adam do show up. But the Gemara said that wasn't so simple. There was a machlokus. If this halacha applies even in the case before, maybe Eshes Ish also applies, like we said, because a woman is not going to be met even in Shalom B'fnei Bala. That's good if you hold that this halacha only applies to the last case only. The case of Nishbesi Torah, that's why I had to say that case to tell you that chiddush. But the one who says that applies to the Eshes Ish also, so then it doesn't explain why it has to have the fourth case. It could have said just the three cases, and the last case of Eshes Ish, it should have said that even if Adam come later on and tell us that she was once married, we're okay with the Pesha Asa because when she told us she was the source of our information, and even though later on, retroactively, we don't need her admittance because we have Adam, but she got already the permission to get married is good enough. So then there's no reason to say the fourth case. There's no reason to say the fourth case. So the Gemara says you're right. We only wanted to say it as a springboard to go into the next subject. So now the Gemara is bringing in the other Mishnayos that are not a Pesha Asa. We said this was a tangent at the time. When the stage which is yesterday's Mishnah, the top of Amud Beis, it said that two women over there are Adam that they were captured and they have no Pesha Asa. Over there it said that a woman is not believed on herself, say she was not defiled, but she was believed for the other one, that Eid Echad is good enough, even a woman is enough. And that's a chiddush to tell you that a woman is believed to testify about her, a different woman, that she was not defiled. But the Gemara says, we know that already also. Why do you need that Mishnah? That's also Mishnah later on. It's going to say later on in the Masechta that this halacha about the Shvuya, that is also an Eid Echad is Neman, even a woman. So you don't need that. So you're right. Here's the extra chiddush, because if you just say the halacha that a woman is believed, Eid Echad, even a woman, even a shifcha, believed to testify that it was not defiled in captivity. That says that later on, but Amish has the extra chiddush that you're not choshish for Gomlin. Gomlin is this point about paying back a favor, that both of them come together and say, each one says on the other one, she was not defiled. So you might think that they made a conspiracy because you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. So that's a chiddush that we don't have later on. We just know that a woman is believed to say testimony that somebody else was not defiled, but not if she's going to do back also the same testimony. Amish tells you that you're not choshish for Gomlin.
What?
Gomlin. You see the word, it's highlighted over here, Gomlin. Like Gomel Chasadim Tovim, to give back payment. So it might be that two people that are doing each other a favor, maybe it's a conspiracy. I'll say something for you, tit for tat. Okay, I've learned another thing that I'll do for you and you do for me. So you might think that to hear the testimony is not good. even we know already that even a woman is believed to say that the woman was not defiled, but we wouldn't know that it applies even if each one is doing it for the other one. That's the Chiddush of our Mishnah. And then the last Mishnah, which we just had now about the Kohanim, what do you see Chiddush over there more than before? Why do we need the last Mishnah we just learned today? That the men who say he's a Kohen, he says he's a Kohen. We know that already. I mean, the Gemara doesn't say Chiddush in that Eid Echad is Neman to say, but the Gemara says no, that is a Chiddush. There is a machlokes if Eid Echad is Neman or not. You're right. As far as all that halachas, we would know it already, but we don't know the Ikra halacha that Eid Echad is Neman to testify that someone's a Kohen, and it's not going to work. If you those not, if you those you have to have two Eidim. So that's why we have to have all the Mishnayos. This was we zoomed out in order to look at the whole picture of the whole the Mishnayos and the Perek so far, and explain how come we have to have all these cases. The Gemara brings a brayso which is similar to our Mishnah, but it says a little bit more. Tan Rabbanan Ani Kohen. So we said already in the Mishnah that Ani Kohen is not believed. A person comes and says, I'm a Kohen, I can eat Truma, we don't believe him. But the point was testifying about somebody else, Chaveri Kohen, that I'm a Kohen, my Chaver is a Kohen, so he's not believed about himself, and he doesn't even talk about it, that he's not believed about himself. But the point is, he is believed for his fellow Kohen, or at least it's a machlokes, and Tanakama says he's Neman. But here, Tanakama says, even though I said that he's believed, that's only as far as Truma. Neman Achilo Truma, Ve'ena Neman Laseo Isha. That he's only trusted to say that he's a Kohen, that he's not a Truma, but he's not believed to say that he's a Kohen as far as marrying. So the question is, let's finish the words. Achu Gimel, only if you have three, means if you want to have testimony for each other, you have to have two Eidim that are testifying. Doesn't mean you have to have three Eidim, you have to have a group of three, Shnai Midim al Zeh, Shnai Midim al Zeh, that you could have in a group of three, each two could testify for the other one. Reuven Shimon testify about Levi. Shimon Levi testify about Reuven. Reuven and Levi testify about Shimon. It means you have to have two Eidim. In short, it's saying that you have to have two Eidim. We're not choshish that they're gomlin, even though they all testifying for each other, but it's not enough to have one Eid. You have to have
three and then configure them to do two.
Right. The point is you have to have two Eidim. You have to have two Eidim per person. You have to have two witnesses per person to say that he's a Kohen as far as getting married.
What does it normally mean practically in terms of the concept?
Common means that if two people are testifying for each other, it arouses suspicion. Maybe they got together in order. I'll tit for tat. I'll do you a favor, you do me a favor. That makes it more suspicious. If a person just comes and says, I'll testify for him, and he doesn't get anything out of it, you don't say any kind of repayment. You don't see any kind of
You see it all the time, by the way. You see, even someone works by musicians also. That you'll I'm not, you're not doing a trick, but you'll say someone else is good, and he'll say you're good. So
I thought it was with the caterer reviews. Musicians.
No, I don't mean you're doing something necessarily wrong. You'll
Yeah, and not the hater reps aren't either. Not necessarily.
Okay, so here's the machlokes we have in the Mishnah already that as Eid Echad to testify someone's a Kohen. Tanakama says yes. Let's finish off. Rabbi Omer Af Emal Achila B'Truma Achi V'Shlosha Shnai Midim Zal Zeh Shnai Midim Al Zeh Shnai Midim Al Zeh. Rabbi holds that the machlokes of the brayso is if one Eid is Neman to testify that someone's a Kohen to eat Truma, and Tanakama says he is Neman. Rabbi says no, you have to have two Eidim. Just here it points out that even according to Tanakama, it's only for Truma, not for Laseo Isha. So this is the question: what does it mean Laseo Isha? A Kohen has to have special testimony in order to get married. Why should he have to have special? The woman that he's marrying has to be very kosher because maybe she's a halala, maybe she's a zona, maybe so. But the matter that the Kohen has to have testimony in order to and about himself in order to get mitzvah chiddush. What does that mean?
Well, are they out of towners?
What's the difference?
We don't know them from anywhere. They showed up in our.
And he wants to get married.
Two eats.
Why not? Don't talk about a Kohen. He's not a Kohen. He's Yisrael. Is there any problem about getting married? He comes and he says he's Jewish. Is there a problem about getting married?
Because he has no issue.
He doesn't have
halalim.
Not halal, but there is about Mamzerim and all kinds of psulim. Maybe he's not Jewish.
It's more rare.
So what do you say? So
I hear what you're saying.
Not true. We're talking Lasiyishek. That's to get
We
married.
assume that's we assume how to say it, Lazaka.
They're probably saying the truth. So Rashi seems to say that he has to bring testimony of himself in order to get married, which we never heard of. And Taisa has conscious that the is not true. We had on your Bamas that somebody comes says he's Jewish. You do trust him. You do assume it. Taisa brings a case where somebody the question was about his kashrus and he said that he is kosher. The child is kosher. So he wanted to get married, and nobody wanted to marry him. So he said, go to someplace where they don't know your history, and no one's going to ask any questions. You see, Taisa brings a proof that someone comes to town and says he's Jewish, you believe him. So Taisa argues in Rashi and says that you don't need proof to say that you're kosher. And not a Kohen. Kohen here just means kosher according to Rashi. Nothing special about it, nothing special. There's difficulty in these words. What does it mean, this thing about marrying a woman? You have to have testimony to say you're Jewish in order to get married. So Rashi seems to say yes. Says Kasha said not. There's a simple pshat in the Tosfos Rid over here, which seems to be the simplest pshat, even though it doesn't fit into the word so well. That it means that not that he should get married, but to testify for his daughter that she could marry a Kohen, that she's kosher, not Africa Bas Kohen, but that she's kosher, and a Kohen could marry her. So the words don't seem to say that. The words seem to say that to marry him a wife.
That's Tosfos. That's
Tosfos Rid. It's in the side in the Gemara. It's on the side at the side margin in the small print. So it starts in the bottom of the page and it continues on the second Amud base. And it's the simplest way to learn the Gemara, even though the words don't fit so well. But he says that it's not talking about marrying him a wife. It's talking about marrying his daughter a Kohen. That a person, when a Kohen wants to marry a woman, then we have to have testimony who she is. That Kohen can't marry anybody. A Kohen cannot marry, the woman has to have testimony about the woman, but Kohen doesn't have testimony about himself that he's a Jew, kosher Jew.
The only thing that we have to worry about a Kohen when he gets married is that if he's saying a Kohen, then his son is going to be a Kohen.
Okay, so
can't marry a Gerush.
but we say this now. We're going that he is believed to say he's a Kohen as far as Truma goes. So if this Tanakhama says he's believed to say he's a Kohen as far as Truma, but he's not believed as far as marrying. So what kind of marriage? So which issue?
Because of what we said, that his daughter won't be a Roy for marrying a
So it's saying that his daughter has to have testimony that she's going to marry a Kohen. It doesn't really mean him. It means it's changing the word. Lasi Isha doesn't mean Lasi Isha. It doesn't mean to marry him a woman. He can get married without any kind of testimony. But if his daughter's going to want to marry a Kohen, then then you have to have testimony who she is, and of course she's born of him. But it's changing the simple words that it doesn't mean that he has to have testimony in order to get married. The words say Lasio Isha, to marry him a woman, and we're saying it doesn't mean that. Tosfos said doesn't mean that. It means to marry his daughter a husband who's a Kohen. But anyway, the testimony that you need to verify somebody's yichus is more, even though as far as eating truma, Tanakhama says Eirech is good enough, but to verify his yichus, you have to have two. Rabbi Yehuda holds even for truma also you have to have two, and that was the machlokes in the Mishnah already. How much testimony do you have to have about somebody's a Kohen in order to eat truma? Tanakhama says one is enough. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to have two, and the other Bryce says, but everybody agrees as far as verifying his yichus, you have to have two. The Gemara starts on the second wide line.
One thing I just remember hearing that a Kohen who says he's a Kohen that can go up and duchen, where they don't have to bug it. Is that true?
So that's going to be a subject later on, but it doesn't have so much to do with us nowadays, because nowadays we're not going to do anything with the duchening. We're not going to learn anything from that. But we'll see a sugya today. That should be Amud Beis. Here, let's talk about eating truma, and now it talks about yichus. Two subjects about a Kohen. One is about what he needs verification in order to eat truma, machlokes of 1 aid or 2 aidim, and there it says that for yichus, everybody else you have to have 2 aidim in order to verify his yichus. The Gemara in the second line. As far as we're concerned, the Gemara could be going on the back into the Mishnah, even though the Brisa has had a Brisa. But if anybody needs the Mishnah, everyone's welcome, whatever you need. On the second wide line, the Gemara talks about the Kasha is going to be L'chora also on the Mishnah. Means this Gemara could be going back to the Mishnah alone, not after the Brisa Midas line. And very interesting, when we learned the Mishnah, machlokes if you need 1 aid or you need 2 aidim. What's the reason that the Rebbe holds you have to have? So you might have learned he holds you have to have 2 aidim, but the Gemara look at it like that. The Gemara is trying to find why should you have to have 2. So the Gemara that the reason why Rebbe holds you have to have 2 aidim is because he's choshesh legomlin. That means that this thing about gomlin, that maybe each one's doing a favor. That's his problem. It means without that,
they're doing funny business. They're doing monkey business. It's not a straight thing going on. So we can't believe them when they can help each other out.
Right. But according to that, the Rebbe will also agree that if an Eid Echad would be Naman, it's only when they come together and each one says the other one is good, that's when we're choshesh. That's how the Gemara looks at Rabbi Yehuda. I wouldn't have thought so. Look at the Mishnah before. It just says, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein man l'kun al pi Eid Echad. And the Gemara is building that the reason is because they're doing it favor for each other. You don't see over here that anybody's doing it favor. You don't see that that's the pshat in the words. The case was, Ein Hein Bidin Zal Zeh. And the more it takes it to me, that's the reason Rabbi Yehuda knows that it's not good. In this particular case, when 2 people are coming to testify for each other, then there's a problem. If Yisrael would come and say, I'm Yisrael, but he's a Kohen, then Rabbi Yehuda also would hold the Eidach is good. That's how the Gemara seems to look at it at this point. And that's the Gemara on the second wide line. The name of the Rabbi Yehuda, Choshesh Chayish Lagomlen, Rabban Lo Chayish Lagomlen, Vayipcha Shamin Allahu. The Gemara is going to bring a Mishnah. Where does it say Mishnah in the mind? That seems to say the opposite. That Ayah Choshesh for this conspiracy seems to be the opposite. There's not talking about Yuchsin, the Tanan, Hamorin, Shenichlesu Le'ir, V'amar Echad Mehem Shali Chadash V'Shalachavim V'Yashan, V'Tukan V'Shalitukan. And two truckers at Chamor means people that donkey drivers. They come. That was that trucks of all the day. Two truckers come in, and each one is selling tvua. They're both selling grain, and one of them says, "My stuff is not good. My friend's stuff, his is good. Mine is the Chadash and Yashan." The Rashi says in Tosfos that it's not talking about the halacha of Chadash and Yashan. What it means, the Chadash is not as good. The new crop is not as good. The quality as the older one. The older one is already dried out. It's a better quality wheat if you have older wheat. So he says, I have the new stuff, and here my friend, he has the good stuff. And mine is not mu'usar, mine is not tied, his is tied. And you want to know, if you want to trust him about the quality, that's your own business. But if you want to trust him about the kashrus, and he's coming to say that even though they're amaratsim, let's say, they're not that chaver to be able to believe him, but he says that he's testifying for his friend's produce that has been tied already. So Tanakam says which the one is saying the Ein one because each one is doing each other a favor. The Choshesh that they're going to do each other favors. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Nema. Rabbi Yehuda says that he is believed, even though there's a chash that they're doing each other a favor, it's conspiracy. But
what is the favor though? Each one is saying mine isn't as good as his.
No, the boys will be in the next city. They go in the next city. This station, in this station, you'll make the sales, and then the next station you can. Right. It could be also that case in the Mishnah, even though you don't see that, even if one will come along. Before I said that if you only go and it's only to come together. It could be I'm wrong. Could be that even if only have one aide testifying, he's a Kohen, but maybe in the next city they'll go someplace else, and then they'll testify that other ones are going. Even if you don't see the Golan in front of you, here it says, even if you don't, the Gemara is asking the Mishnah over there. It says that Rabbi Yehuda's Choshesh, that Tanakama's Choshesh for Golan, even if you don't see that the Golan right now, he does see that he's testifying on his friend that his is time, because maybe they're going to change over for the next city, and they're doing each other favors.
So sell the whole stuff. It's all one situation.
So
What about
that's the
yesterday
question.
when we learned about the two Shavuot? They called captured woman. They also said if he allowed her to be kosher and it was accepted.
So we said we're not kosher. So that says we're not kosher for Golan. That's what it
Why?
says.
Yeah.
This Mishnah also said that you're not kosher. Rabbi Yehuda maybe is kosher. It's not being machlokes. The Gemara is bringing it out. So the Gemara is asking the contradiction of Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda, because in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, we think it's kosher l'golan. The reason why he says Erecha is not good is because he's kosher that they're doing each other a favor. And the Mishnah and Demai says Neman, that even if you have this truck driver that says on his fellow driver that his stuff is good, you do believe him, and you're not kosher that they're going to be doing each other favors. That's the most contradiction. On this, the word is two terutzim. One is Rav, one is Abaye. You're right, it's a contradiction. You have to switch it around. It means that you have to make them consistent. Either switch around our Mishnah or switch around the Mishnah over there. They have to be consistent. If an Mishnah Yechoshish for Golan, then over there Yechoshish for Golan. Either Rabbi Yehuda holds both cases yes, or both cases not. But it's a good kasha, and it's dependent on each other, these two Mishnayos, and you have to make that they should be reconciled, that you have to switch the names around. Here it says Tanakama holds one way, Rabbi Yehuda holds the other way, and our Mishnah says the opposite, so you have to switch it around. Okay, that's easy teretz. If it's true that one of them is a mistake, you have to switch it around. Abaye Amalolo Moshe to switch the Mishnayos around. The Demai Yikilu. Then our Mishnah, that's okay. That's good. It's good.
The truth is, it's a very high fan.
It can be a little lower.
Thank you. The Demai Yikilu. Rov Amos Masuneh. The Mishnah over there, the Demai. The reason why we just make it is because it's only a question of the Demai. Means when Adin, you're allowed to trust the Amor. It comes and says that it's tied. You're allowed to trust him in Adin. Rov Amos Masuneh. Most of them do a good job. They only are mere that people. So the Mishnah over there will more make it because that's a question of the mind. So Yehuda Mishnah, which is the Raisa, let's say that it's more of a chash if the Lari Truma or not. So then we're going to be Choshish for Golan, and over there by the Mai, since the whole thing is only Yisrael Rabbanan, that's why we make it. That's how Bai wants to answer the Mishnah. But Rava jumps up. The Yehuda Kasha, the Rabbanan Lo Kasha, that they're only concerned with answering the contradiction and say that the Mishnah of the Mai is more lenient because it's only the Mai. But look at the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan is opposite. The Rabbanan and our Mishnah said that you're not Choshish for Golan, and the Mishnah over there says you're Choshish for Golan. That's the opposite. According to your Pshat, that this Mishnah is even more lenient, and it makes the Kasha even stronger on Rabbanan. How come over here they're Choshish for Golan even though it's only the Mai? So he didn't finish the story yet. He didn't answer the kasha. The first teretz that he said switch it around. Okay, everyone's taken care of. You switched it around. There's no contradiction either way. But if you're only going to explain that this mission is more lenient, you're only answering Rabbi Yehuda. You're not answering the Rabbanan. You do have to use your teretz like you said, Abaya. I'll use your teretz as far as Rabbi Yehuda. The reason why he's more makel in the Mishnah by demise because the Demai Kilu is only Rav must Nashon anyway. But they still have to answer the kasha. I'll take care of that. There's another case coming up which I wasn't going to bring down when he has his professional tools with him. Nami, we turn the page. Nami, that here there's more reason to be choshesh for Gomlin because we see that he's a professional. We have his scale, whatever Rashi, whatever he has, his donkey. He has a scale. We see that he's a merchant also. It's not like he's merchandise. He comes and says, my stuff is no good. In this city, that his stuff is good and my stuff is not good. But the fact that he's not for selling it also, why did he bring all this stuff for? Because he wants to sell it. So there's more reason to be choshesh for Gomlin, and that's the reason that in our Mishnah, the Rabbanan are more a makel, and over there, the more machmer. Over there, the more machmer, because we see that he's out to sell his stuff also. In our Mishnah, he says, he's a Kohen. He says, he's a Kohen. You don't see anything. Nothing arouses suspicion. But over there, that he's out to sell his stuff. So we also are choshesh for Gomlin more. So far, the Gemara is going, the whole issue was about Gomlin, and Avida's sometimes choshesh, sometimes he's not. Rabbanan sometimes are, sometimes are not. The whole issue so far, the Gemara revolves around this issue. He's doing the second. Each one's doing a trick in order to help the other one. I'll help you, you help me. Before the Gemara goes further, the Gemara is going to stop everything soon in about 10 lines. But before we get there, the Gemara brings down where do we see this issue about Kliyam Nosa B'Yado. We start at the bottom of the page. Rav Chama Baruch says something about having his professional tools with him that shows us that he wants to sell. So we go up on a tangent, mamash a side cruise to see something that's a Mishnah and Taurus. Over there, it's talking about you have somebody who's washing his kelim to make sure that they don't become tameh. He has earthenware vessels and he wants to make sure that it's stored. So where do we learn this? Mishnah and Taurus. There's a potter. Kador is a potter. The word kedera is a pot. Kador is a potter, and he made these pots that they should be tohor. He made sure since they were what's the word in the he burnt his pottery, and now he's ready to sell them, and he's traveling to sell, and he is watching that he shouldn't become tummy. No one should touch them. If someone touches them, I'm horetz, tummy. So then they make the pots tummy. So he had to go get a drink. So he left them. He has his pots over there on the side of the road, and he goes down to or he has them in his wagon, whatever it is, and he went to get a drink, but he wasn't washing it at that time. Ayachoshish that the pots became tummy. So it says the inner row means you have them in rows. So the ones that are further back, you're not choshish anybody touch them, but the outer ones that are more available to people that are passing by, so then they're tummy. That's the Mishnah. The Mazakasha from a brisa, but Tanya Elu Velu Tmeos. It says in a brisa that everything, the ones that are further back. If we see that he says for sale, means the point is in his hand. It means that in the place where the pots were, people saw that they were for sale. It means we're not suspects. We don't suspect that a person is going to go around touching somebody else's pots if they're not for sale. It's his own business. It's his business. Why touching his pots for? But if he has over there a cash register or something like that that shows that they're for sale, has a sign, the price, he sees a clay, somehow you see that they're for sale. So then people do go over in order to touch them to see if that's what he wants to buy. So in the case where there's a for sale sign, whatever that means, clay unless of the other, we see that he's coming to sell it. So then even the inner rows are tummy because people might have while he went down to drink and he didn't see what's doing. So it could be somebody came and he around even the back to see which one he wanted to buy. And we don't know if it's tummy or not, so you have to be chosh that it's tummy. But in the case where there's no sale sign, there's no remembrance to anybody who's passing by that it's for sale, then they wouldn't touch it. Only if it's on the outside, they might have touched it as they were passing by, but they wouldn't have gone into the back rows to check out what's doing over there. Because he's touching it. If it's for sale, everybody goes to see what it is. Tomorrow's inside point.
Just stop that he was right there.
No, he was not right there.
That
That means that the biyado doesn't mean biyado. It means either the words mean that he had his professional tools with him. He had his cash register, or he had whatever he needs that shows that he's a merchant selling these pots.
And that's not the end of the sentence.
Right, that's right. The rest of it is going to be an explanation. Because everybody's going to touch it. If they see that, either it means that they saw him before he went down to get a drink, or it means that he doesn't have it in his hand. He has it next to the merchandise. Over there, by the merchandise, he has a cash register that shows it's for sale. So over there, the reason why we're cautious is some even the back rows, because people touch it because they want to buy it. In the case where not, so then only the outer row might have touched, but they're not going to go to touch the inner rows. The more is the kasha vatanya elu belu Torah, a third right, another brisa that says both of them are Torah. Even the other one is also Torah. So we have three opinions. One, the Mishnah says that difference between the inner and the outer. One brisa says both of them are Tamei, one brisa says both of them are Torah. So again, if Chacham said it's not for sale. So now it's stuck because one case is that they are for sale, one case is not for sale, but you have three opinions. You have one case that everything's Tamei, one case everything is Torah, one case that the inner ones are Torah, outer ones are Tamei. What's the case that it depends on the outer row, inner row? You're saying that if it's not for sale, everything's Torah. No one touches it at all. If it is for sale, everyone touches everything. So what's the case where people will touch the outer ones, not the inner ones? If it's right off the road, so then not because anybody was going to touch it, but they might have rubbed against it. If it's not for sale, people don't touch it at all. And therefore, if it's a little bit off the road, they're not going to go to touch even the outer roads, but it's right next to the road. So not because they intended to touch it, but they just rubbed against it. So that's not reason to make it tamei. If it's for sale, then even if it's off the road, they're also going to go there and see what they want to buy anything. So they'll touch all of them or some of them, even the back row, in order to see if they want it. Then they put it down, they don't want it. If it's not for sale, people are not interested in touching it, but they might have rubbed against it if it's near the main road.
Would they become tamei if we put it inside?
I'm sorry?
Don't they have to touch it inside?
Yeah, I guess the ear, right? If it's plicheres has to be touched inside, so that's what they do. That I say saying chifufe means rubbing it on the outside, maybe. So you must say that also his garment might have gone inside to the top of the kli, and would have a nice point. That it has to become kabel tumah only if it's from the inside. Plicheres not kabel tumah megabo. So it must be that he might have touched it by mistake inside also. So I'll explain. I'll say a shot that his garment might have his cloak might have gone in to the kli in a way that it's going to be avrik l'cheres. Nice point. Yeshikov. So that was a side point just to bring down this concept of claim nosa biyodo, which we applied over here. That if the two merchants come, we see he's a merchant because he's for selling the stuff also. Claim nosa biyodo. Then we're cautious that he's going to do a deal, and you do a favor for me in this city. I'll do a favor for you in the next city. That's the reason what is more going. So far the Gemara looked at the whole Machlokes of Yudan and Rabbanan, everything is about Gomel. The reason why you should have to weigh them is because maybe one aid is going to be Gomel, that he's doing, you do a favor for me, I'll do a favor for you, and testify for me, I'll testify for you. And that's Machlokes. One of you more Machmer, one of you more Mekel, maybe by my Kilu, maybe if there's more reason that they're doing favor, which we would have the said by ourselves. Ibo Isema. The issue of machlokes in our Mishnah has nothing to do with Gomel. The Mishnah, go back to the Mishnah, that's how it looks like also. Rabbi says, Eidach does not believe. It doesn't say because they're doing each other a favor, because there are two. He just says that Ein Malin Lekun Al Pi Eidach. So if that's the reason, let's make a little. Rabbi says, Ein Malin Lekun Al Pi Eidach. Till now, we thought the reason is because they're doing each other a favor, and there's a conspiracy going on, and in the next city, and he's going to say, I'm a Kohen, and he says, you're a Kohen, you're a Kohen. Not much has a new reason, nothing to do with that. The reason why you have to weigh them for eating truma is because if someone is going to see a person eating truma, he's going to assume also that he's a Kohen, even as far as marriage also. And we said that even the Rabbanan, everybody agrees that for Yuchsin, you have to weigh them. That's what the Brisa said. We didn't need the Brisa.
It has to do with marriage, because it's Yuchsin has to do with marriage.
Yes, that it says for Yuchsin, we mean that to know is yichus, either him marrying, that we had difficulty. What kind of a testimony does it need? But whatever it means that it said Lasio Isha, whatever these words mean, that Lasio Isha, everybody else you have to have two Eidim. So then that's machlokes ayachoshish, that if you're going to give him truma, people will say, I know he's a Kohen because he eats truma. He got truma. So then he's a Kohen that we can marry. As far as marriage also, his yichus is good, and that's a question. If people see somebody eating truma, do we assume that he's Kohen also as far as yichus? as marriage.
Yes.
So that's the machlokas. So Rabbi Tanakama says we're not choshes for that. Tanakama also agrees that for Yuchsin you have to two Eidim. But he says, but give him Truma, and when it comes time to Yuchsin, we'll figure out you have to two Eidim. But right now,
We
you
won't
can give him
rely on
Truma. No, we're not going to rely on the fact that he ate Truma, that he's a Kohen, and his Yuchus is good. But the Rabbi says, no, if you're going to give him Truma, we're going to also assume that he's a Kohen as far as Yuchsin go also, and we don't want to. So therefore, right away by Truma also, don't give him Truma only if you have two Eidim. And that's what the Gemara calls Malin, where the words, the Malin, the Truma, the Yuchsin Knefliki, that are you allowed to elevate him from Truma? They see as a Kohen as far as Truma goes. You also say that Yuchsin also is considered a Kohen, and we won't investigate further. Rabbi holds that we won't investigate further, therefore investigate now. Don't give him Truma only if he's a verified Kohen, because if not, people are going to make a mistake.
I was just about to ask, what happens if it's a Kohen Amar? Doesn't know how to Shmer.
So the Kohanim, the Israelim Amoritz, they have no problem. They give it to the Kohen Amoritz, and the Chaverim don't give it to him. But we're not talking about that. Here we're talking about, is he a Kohen? You're talking about even if he's a Kohen, but maybe he's Amoritz. So that's another issue. The Chaver won't give Truma to a Kohen Amoritz. But that's not the issue. The issue is, are you allowed to give him Truma, whatever you think of him? Is he a Kohen? So here it says that there's a problem. If you can consider him a Kohen as far as Truma, people might say he's also a Kohen as far as Yuchsin. And then everybody holds for Yuchsin, you have to have two Eidim. So Tanakam is not concerned. For Yuchsin, we'll get to Yuchsin when we get to it, but just to give him Truma, we're not going to say since he gets Truma, he's a Kohen as far as Yuchsin also. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're scared that people, or we do elevate, if someone gets Truma, so we say that as a Yuchas also. So therefore, we catch it in the bud right away, and we don't give him Truma only if you have two Eidim that is a Kohen. And that's the first point about Truma Yuchsin. If you can elevate somebody to Yuchsin, if you give him Truma. And now the Gemara goes on to other subjects about two more similar subjects, which is going to be for today two subjects. One is going to be about Shtaros Yuchsin, one is going to be as Nesias Kapayim Yuchsin, which Chaim David brought before about Nesias Kapayim. So the everything's coming, always worried about Yuchsin. Yuchsin needs two Eidim. And that's what they said in Amman Aleph, to verify his lineage as far as marriage goes. And everybody holds you have to have two Eidim over there. And inherently, it sounds like Truma and Shtaros, we'll see in a second what that means, and Nesias Kapayim, you wouldn't have to have two Eidim. But the only reason why you might have to have two Eidim is because if someone will see him being treated as a Kohen as far as different subject, they might assume that he's also a Kohen as far as Yuchsin goes, and we don't want to do that. So that would be a reason why you have to have two Eidim even for the first subject. So those are the three subjects that I talked about today. One is Truma Yuchsin, one is Shtaros Yuchsin, and one is going to be Nesias Kapayim Yuchsin. So here starts the next sugya, Yiboilu. Can you assume that someone's a Kohen for Yuchsin as far as marriage goes, just because in the Shtar he was called a Kohen? You had a contract and someone was called a Kohen. So the Lord wants to know where in the contract do you see the Kohen that someone's called a Kohen? The two choices are either the Eidim was signed, they wrote if the aid signs himself as a Kohen, is that a proof? No one's testifying on him. He says on himself, I'm a Kohen. We know already if a person says I'm a Kohen, surely it's not good enough. Just because you see in the contract that someone signed himself as a Kohen doesn't mean anything. So that's surely not a question. The case is that one of the people, the Malva, the Loba over there calls them a Kohen. In the contract, where it says the Chasa and the Kala, whatever, the Bas Kala, over there, or in the case of the Malva, the Loba, the seller, the buyer, it calls him a Kohen. And the Eidim signed in the contract on the bottom. What's the question? When they signed the contract, are they just testifying that the deal happened? He sold it to him, he lent it to him, he married her, or are they also testifying on all the details that he says in the contract, the Malva is a Kohen, and they signed the name? Would they have signed their name if they would have not known that he's a Kohen? The case is that somebody in that contract writes that Ani Ploni Kohen Levisi Manim Ploni. He writes his name and he writes his name as a Kohen, and he says I borrowed money, and they are Eidim on the contract. What are the Eidim testifying for? Maybe the Eidim are only testifying on the deal itself, the contract. It's not my business to know that he's a Kohen. He's a Kohen. That's not my business. I'm not testifying about that. So then according to that, you wouldn't be able to assume that he's a Kohen. You have no testimony. Or when they sign the contract, they have to also know all the facts. And if the guy called himself a Kohen, they can't sign it only if they know that's a Kohen. It's as if the testimony on the contract is also testifying that he's a Kohen also.
But why would you assume that? Because it's not, as you said, it's not shy to them as in.
So the question really goes, the next question, the question of the Gemara seems to be on the whole Yesod. When you sign a contract as an aid, do you have to know all the information is true before you sign it? It means we're going back to the Eidim, but we're not talking already that the Eidim are signed, and we're talking about what do they mean to sign. So it comes back, the question goes back to the beginning. When you sign a contract, you have to know all the facts are true before you sign it. And if the halacha would be that if it says Kohen and you signed on it, that means you know he's a Kohen. That means don't sign it, only if you know that he's a
Right,
Kohen.
'cause you can be considered an aid checker.
Yeah. You testify something you don't know. So don't sign that. That's the question. So machlokis, Rav Huna, Rav Chisda, Chadama Malin, Chadama In Mal. Machlokis, if when the Eidim sign in the shtar, are they testifying on everything it says in the shtar? And according to one who says Malin, he would hold that don't sign the shtar, only if you know that it's true. And if that after that's true, if everybody listens to this Mandi Amar, so then they're not going to sign, only if they know there's a Kohen. And if you have a shtar that says he's a Kohen, and Eidim are signed on it, so you could trust it. But the one that says Ein Malin is because people could sign a shtar without knowing all the details. They just know that the loan happened. They don't know who the people are. They don't know that this person's a Kohen. They know his name, but they don't know that he's a Kohen. So according to that, you could sign a shtar even if you don't know all the facts, and that's what it seems to say. We paskin Ein Malin. So if you get a contract that says someone's a Kohen, doesn't mean that's not enough. That's not enough. Doesn't mean anything because they did not necessarily knew that he's a Kohen. But and therefore the Eidim, they're allowed to sign a contract even without knowing the details. They just know that the loan happened. They sign on that. They don't have to know if all the details of who the person calls himself, if it's true or not.
That's called Ein Mal.
That's called Ein Malin, means that even if you see a contract that says that the Malva calls himself a Kohen, that's not enough proof to say that he's a Kohen as far as Yichus goes. And now, as you brought it down, so that means that when you sign a contract, you don't have to know that information. You're allowed to sign the contract, even if you don't know that the facts are true, if he's a Kohen or not. Next question. Okay, this is the last question for today. You see somebody doing Birchas Kohanim. Could you assume that he's a Kohen as far as the marriage also? Which comes back to say, do we have to stop him from doing the Siyas Kapayim until he's
We're talking
verified?
about his daughter's marriage now, or who's
Whatever Yochim meant. I left it very, what's the word? Ambiguous, because it's not simple. The Rashi and Tupshat and Tosfos, and I don't know. But there's something about Yochim that to prove his lineage, whatever reason you need that for, so you have to have two Eidim. Everybody gives you have to have two Eidim. And now the question is, if you see somebody doing the Siyas Kapayim, does that mean that he's verified Kohen? And you could assume also as far as lineage goes, which boils down to mean that when it comes to the basic necessity, he wants to do the Siyas Kapayim, then we tell him, where's your verification? We're not going to let you do the Siyas Kapayim until you confirm yourself. So that's the question. If we're not going to assume because he's doing the Siyas Kapayim, he's a Kohen as far as lineage goes, then we can let him do the Siyas Kapayim like Gesund If you think you're a Kohen, so do it. It doesn't mean anything to us. We'll get a bracha, we won't get a bracha. That's not going to be an Avera. But there's no chash that we're going to make you a Kohen as far as other things go. But if you hold Malin the Siyas Kapayim, so then we wouldn't let someone do the Siyas Kapayim unless we know there's a Kohen. The Gemara says this is independent of the question before that is our Mishnah. If from Truma, you give him Truma, if you could assume that he's a Kohen as far as lineage goes, the Gemara throws in a new factor over here that maybe there's another reason to trust the Kohen who you have an Eid Echad that says that he's a Kohen, because besides the Eid Echad, you also have that he wouldn't eat Truma if he wasn't really a Kohen. Means this has nothing to do with Eid Echad, it has to do with himself. And everybody holds that a Kohen is not believed on his own to eat Truma. Yeah, any Kohen is not enough. You have to have at least an Eid Echad. But here it's making a combination. You have an Eid Echad, and also he wouldn't eat Truma. It's a big Avera, it's a one Misa. It's if his Zohar is going to eat Truma, it's Chayav Misa B'dei Shemayim. So if somebody, he doesn't just say I'm a Kohen, he eats Truma, that's already putting himself out. And a regular Jew is not suspect that he's going to eat Truma if he's not really a Kohen.
So we believe he's a Kohen.
Right, but not by himself, not alone. Not just because he eats Truma. I said, I need Kohen, I will eat Truma, that everybody holds not. But the combination, the Eid Echad plus he's eating Truma, maybe that's a good proof. And maybe that's the reason why he holds Malin Truma Kohen the Yuchsin. That was.
Are we still saying that he went up to Duchen?
No, we're going backwards. Means we know Machlokes in the Mishnah, which we finished saying. Just to go back a little bit, that was the green that we said Machlokes Abuda and Rabbanan is Malin Truma Yuchsin. That Abuda holds that if you see him eating Truma, you do say based on that he's a Meyuchas. And over there is also therefore Abuda holds that you have to have two Eidim. I'm getting a little bit confused now. Abuda is the one who says you have to have two Eidim. Eid Echad is not good enough because we do say that if he eats Truma, we're gonna say that as a meyuchas. So therefore, don't give him truma, only with 2 edim. Here the Gemara is throwing in another factor, which I'm getting a little confused now. Means you have already 2 edim, but also together with the fact that that he's eating truma. That shows that he's verifying himself even more than 2 edim. That you have and 2 edim plus that. I got a little stuck now, but just to say the words. So even if you hold that malim truma liyuchsin is only because it's in combination that he's also putting his foot out, putting his foot in his mouth, putting truma in his mouth. That he's ready to eat truma and say that I'm a Kohen. That's a very big statement because it's a chiyuv nisbedei shemayim for a zar to eat truma. Oh, but in Nesias Kapayim, even if he's really Yisrael, he wants to do Nesias Kapayim. He's not doing a bigger bear; he's doing a smaller bear. It's Isra Aseh. Means it's he's transgressing a positive commandment if Yisrael does Birchas Kohanim. The Torah says that the Kohanim, Kesuvos b'nei Yisrael, Amar Lahem, the mitzvah is for the Kohanim to bless, and right, and that's only a lav abom achal aseh. So it has the severity of transgressing a mitzvah aseh. If Yisrael is going to do Birchas Kohanim, so that's not so severe like in Chiyuv Misa. So maybe you can't trust him. And even though you see him doing Nesias Kapayim, it doesn't mean to us too much that he's a Kohen. So therefore, maybe you're not going to say that. It must be that he's a kosher for lineage also.
So lo means lo malim.
Right.
We do not trust.
We won't trust him. Right. That's
we
one
see
choice.
him go up, but
And
we won't trust him.
Right. And therefore, ein malin min Nesias Kapayim liyuchsin. Even if you hold malin or truma liyuchsin, but he might still hold ein malin min Nesias Kapayim liyuchsin. But you have a choice the other way also, different extreme. Odim maloshna. Maybe not. Maybe if you hold malin with truma, then also malin Nesias Kapayim. And I can even go the other extreme lagamri. Even if you hold by truma liyuchsin, ein malin truma liyuchsin, maybe Nesias Kapayim is better. Why? Where do people eat truma? In their own house. He doesn't make a public statement. He's not making a public declaration. I'm a Kohen. He goes to his house, eats truma. He's an Avarian. He's a non-Kohen, and he's eating truma. So there you might say that ain't malin, because even though he eats truma, we're not convinced he's a Kohen. But the Nesias Kapayim de Masafah Hesia, he goes up in front of the shul and he does, and I say he's announcing everybody, I'm a Kohen. That a person doesn't have such a chutzpah to say he's a Kohen if he's really not. Lav Kohen who probably had to finish nafshe. A person wouldn't be so audacious to say he's a Kohen in public. So the Gemara gives both extremes with possibilities that even if you hold malin metruma, maybe ain't malin Nesias Kapayim. Even if you hold ain't malin metruma, maybe yes malin Nesias Kapayim. So that's the most question. Can you prove somebody's a Kohen for the fact that it doesn't see his Kapayim? Are we going to also elevate him to eat to Yuchsin? So the more left it as a machlokus now. Which would have repercussions. Are you allowed to let somebody do Nesias Kapayim before you verify? Same question came up to Rava. First we said machlokus, and Ravina, and now Rav Nachman Yitzchak asked Rava, what do you think? So first he told him it's a machlokus. Amalei plukta the Rav Chisda Rav Nivina. We just says machlokus. One says yes, one says not. But then he asked him, who do you pass like? Amalei have a right. May Raisa. Amalei number six Tanya Biosi Yomer. Kedol Chazaka. Chazaka is very strong. Chazaka means that the fact that you are doing something to leave the status quo is a very strong koach. How do you know? So it brings a pasuk over here, a very long pasuk. Chazaka is great. Chazaka is great. Chazaka means status quo is great. Status quo is very strong.
Meaning we can rely
on. We can rely on status quo. That's what Rabbi Yossi says. And it brings a pasuk. The pasuk is very long. A pasuk in Ezra. I'll just try to highlight it. This is all the pasuk. Oh, a few seconds. I didn't. All that is a pasuk. So the pasuk says, it's talking about when they went up the Aliyah. They made Aliyah from Babel to Israel. Bnei HaKohanim, Bnei Chavayah, Bnei HaKodes, Bnei Barzilai, Asher Lakach B'nos Barzilai Giladi Isha, Vayikorei Al Shema. It talks about the Kohanim, and it says the Yichus of the Kohanim and different families. By the Kohanim, it says that there were a couple of families that they didn't find their lineage, Ksav Yichus. What do we call that nowadays? If you have a Ksav Yichus, you have some kind of birth genealogy. They weren't able records. They weren't able to They weren't able to prove their Yichus. They were known as Kohanim, but they couldn't prove it. So it says from the family of Kohanim there were three families: Bnei Chavayah, Bnei HaKodes, and Bnei Barzilai. It says in parentheses, so to speak, who was Bnei Barzilai, that they had married people who had married from the daughters of Barzilai Agiladi, and they took on the woman's name. It means Barzilai was not a Kohen. But the Kohanim, this family had married them, and they called themselves their wife's name. the family name. They called Bnei Barzilai, even though that wasn't their family, it's the wife's name. But they took on their wife's name. But that's not the point. But it says about them, these three families, Bnei Chavayah, Bnei Akos, Bnei Barzilai, it says, Eila b'kshu ksav his hamisyachas sim. That's the word yichus, with a sin, that they looked for their records of genealogy. But on himself, they weren't able to find to prove that they were Kohanim. By Yigo Alum and Akuna, they were banished kind of things. Like the word like Goal, like Nimas, they were scorned from the Kuna. They weren't able to prove their Kohanim, so they were not accepted to be Kohanim. Vayamar Tishasa Lahem, that Tishasa said, Tishasa is Nehemiah Tishasa. Nehemiah,
What's that mean?
there's a title called Tishasa. The Gemara says a drash over there why it's called Tishasa, but that's Nehemiah Tishasa.
It's a what?
A title.
A title.
It's called Nehemiah Tishasa.
Uh-huh.
So the Tishasa said to them, Asher lo yachlum b'kodesh HaKodeshim, they can't eat Kodesh HaKodeshim, ad amod kohen urim v'tumim, until the Kohen v'tumim is going to be able to say that they're Kohanim. Means they had lack of proof of their yichus of kahuna, so they can't eat Kodesh HaKodeshim. That's the pasuk. But the Gemara now is with the Brisa, Rabbi Yossi is medayik, that you just told them not to eat Kodesh HaKodeshim. You could remain status quo. What did he eat till now? It means they came in Babel, they also acted as Kohanim, and they were able to eat over there Kachei Agvul. They were able to eat kachim that's done even outside of the Beis Hamikdash, which means truma. That they were eating truma in Babel. Afkan b'Kachei Agvul, you could continue eating Kachei Agvul. That's the end of the Brisa. The Brisa seems to say that even though these people didn't have yichus, didn't have proof that they're Kohanim, but they were allowed to continue eating whatever they ate until now.
From the fact that they couldn't eat the kachim.
Kodesh HaKodeshim, which means, which the more is not saying Kodesh HaKodeshim, Kachim Kalam, it means that you can eat Kodesh, don't eat Kachim from the Beis Hamikdash, don't eat Kodesh of the Mikdash, but you could eat Kodesh that you ate in Chutz La'aretz also.
Gavul means out of the
Mikdash.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the Brisa. And the Gemara is just saying that if you say Gedol Chazaka, that means whatever you're doing until now, stay status quo. And Truma, you can continue eating Truma, but the Gemara says also they were doing Birchas Kohanim so far. These Kohanim, they were doing Birchas Kohanim also. For the same reason it says status quo on the Truma, it says status quo also on Birchas Kohanim. And
which would be status quo on kahuna.
And then if you say that you're scared that if they're going to be doing the Siyas Kapayim, we're going to say the Kohanim as far as Yichus also, so then how can we let them continue doing the Siyas Kapayim? They're going to be accepted as Kohanim as far as lineage also goes. Peace, that's not a Gemara takes over. Peace, this is Rabbi talking. Peace, like the if you hold that you're allowed to elevate somebody from the doing Birchas Kohanim, that he's considered a Kohen as far as lineage also. These people, since they're going to be spreading out their hands, they'll be doing the Siyas Kapayim, they're going to say that they're good to lineage also, and you don't want them to be good to lineage because he said that they're not good to lineage. How did to bring them up to the word maskana? It means to lahasik means to take up. You're going to elevate them. You're going to be ma'aleh. The word ma'aleh, asukinu was the Aramaic of ma'alim. That if you hold that ma'alim with yuchsin, with Siyas Kapayim with yuchsin, how did Nehemiah allow them to continue doing the Siyas Kapayim? But he didn't want them to become accepted as lineage because they didn't have a good lineage. They didn't have any records. And he wasn't choshesh. He said, continue doing whatever you did till now. And one of them is the Siyas Kapayim. And you're not choshesh that they're going to be accepted as Kohanim as far as lineage. But the Gemara says not a kasha. But the Gemara is going to disprove Rabba's proof. Here it's better because the chazaka is being weakened because we don't let them eat kachim from the mikdash. So even though a regular Kohen, that if you let them do one thing, we'll assume there's a Kohen for everything. But over here, there was a label on them that they cannot eat kachim mikdash. So that's going to hold them in place. No one's going to jump to any conclusions that they're full-fledged Kohanim. You're not going to say this teretz, then it's a kasha on everybody. Not only in the case, not everybody, but the one who says Ma'alim Truma Yosin. That's for sure Mishnah. The Mishnah has a machlokas abayas. If you're allowed to assume if somebody's eating truma that he's a mayuchas also. If Rita says Ma'alim Truma Yosin, therefore get and then the kasha would be how did the Nehemiah let them eat truma if they might be assumed Kohanim as far as yichus also. If you're Ma'alim Truma Yosin, that means that we're allowed to assume if they're eating truma that them yuchasim, but Nehemiah didn't want to accept them as kohanim. Only the truma. It must be that over here there was no problem because the fact that we dafka did not let them to eat kachim mikdash, that kept everybody alert that they're not full-fledged kohanim.
Where's raya?
Correct, real like a weekend. Like you can say ra that it was weekend
not
or
raya, not a proof.
not a proof. No, real like a weekend or bad. Adkan. We're still middle of the sugya, but we'll stop over here.
Yes,
Yeah.
Shakar.
There you go. Thank you. You got to the bottom. You got to the bottom word. There you go. Thank you.